So, good morning, good afternoon, and or good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, in this Zoom reality, our introductory greetings have to cover the entire globe because as beautiful as it is that Zoom allows us to connect in the virtual space and place in real time, we don't know where we are connecting with each other from. So if you're joining us from Montreal, a good middle of the day. And if you are joining us from Israel, as our two special guests are doing, then a beautiful good evening to you. My name is Csaba Nikolenyi. I'm a professor of political science and also director of the Azrieli Institute of Israel Studies. And it's been my privilege and honor to serve in that capacity for the past several years. This particular year is very special and important in the history of the Institute as we are celebrating our 10th anniversary. It's been already 10 years that we are able to bring the academic, informed study of Israel, politics, history, culture, society to our campus, to our students, and also share the results of this engagement with members of our community. Today's event is a very special conversation with Lina Chaplin and Daniela Reiss, who are directors and producers of the documentary that we shared with you yesterday, Voices from the Booth. What is the booth? What does it mean to its occupants? What does it mean to us? And what are the voices that we are hearing from the booth? What are the voices that the occupants of the booth are sharing with us? Are going to be very interesting questions, very interesting issues for us to discuss. Without further ado, I would like to welcome Lina and Daniela. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation. You are both very distinguished, very important members of the Israeli cinematographic community, and it's such an honor for us to have seen this film and for us to be able to meet you, if not in person, but on this platform over Zoom. So the format of this exchange is that I would ask a couple of questions just to get us going in the beginning. And then the floor or the chat box will be open for our audience, and they would be able to leave questions, comments, and I would be sharing them with you to the best of my ability. And I will also try to be as fair and as balanced as possible so that as many questions could be entertained as possible. So Lina and Daniela, I would like to start right at the very top, if you will, with the title, Voices from the Booth. And it is actually a literal translation of the Hebrew. Why this title? Why this story? What does the title mean? What did it mean to you? And what do you think it means to the audience?
I think I want to explain to the audience that Lina can hardly speak English, so I will translate her. She'll answer in Hebrew to me, and I will translate her.
אני חושבת שהתשובה מאוד מאוד פשוטה. הרוב החיים של האנשים האלה מתרחשים בבודקה.
Just a second, רגע. Lina says that it's a very simple answer. Most of our protagonist's life happens in this boot. Okay, we call it in Yiddish butke. It's an Yiddish word, and
והם מבלים שם המון שעות, מפני שכמו שאתם בטח מנחשים, שהשכר על עבודה זה מאוד מאוד נמוך, אז הם עובדים לא 8 שעות בבודקה, אבל רוב החיים הם שם, ואז הכל מה שהם אומרים, אני אגיד, הכל מה שהם אומרים, אנחנו שומעים הכל שלהם ברוב המקרים מהבודקה.
They spend most of their lives in this booth because they earn like minimum wage. So they have to work many hours a day in order to bring money home. So most of their voices, most of their time is spent in this booth, and that's why everything comes out of the booth. They have no time at home almost because they need to bring money home.
כל הפגישות שלנו היו בבודקה, וזה באמת אנחנו הקלטנו כל מה שהם אומרים בבוקר.
We started this film, I will add my answers as well, okay?
Of course.
We started this film with the thought of filming only in the booth, like to show to give this feeling of being close in such a small, most of the time dirty, abandoned places.
Small room.
Very, very small and claustrophobic places, okay? So that's why it's Voices from the Booth, because we recorded only in the booth.
גם פיזית זה כל הזמן.
Physically, that's what we did. Only in the booth. We filmed only in the booth.
Yet it's, thank you for that beautiful answer. Yet at the same time, the booth is complex. One of the very first character compares the booth to his wife. He says, I have two wives. I have my real wife and then I have the booth. He also calls it the place where the muse is coming, right? For inspiration. He writes. At the same time, we also hear him draw the analogy of the physical dimension. What you just said, Lina and Daniela, the physical dimensions of the booth are those of a jail cell.
באופן אידיאלי היה צריך לצלם את הסרט הזה רק בבודקה, אבל הצלם לא היה מסכים, זה יותר מדי קשה.
Ideally, how do you say it in English? I don't know. To be ideal.
Ideally.
Okay. Ideally, I don't know to pronounce it. Ideally, we should have filmed only in the booth. But it's a very tough job. It's an extreme tough job physically for a photographer to do it.
To do this.
So sometimes we had to go out, but that was the initial intention, to do it just to give this impression of being prisoner, some kind of prisoner in a small cell.
הנושא דורשת לצלם רק בודקה.
The subject demands to shoot only the booth.
That's an interesting point.
We compromised because we had good reason to compromise in several spots in the film.
How did you think of making this film? What was the genesis? What was the origin of the idea?
I know her answer, so I will answer without translating.
Okay.
Okay. No, I will. I know the answer. Lina is going to the supermarket here, next road, and she passes for 25 years on the same aisle. And we in Israel, whenever you enter a shop, somebody is checking your bag, security check. And one time she went and he said to her hello, and then she said, "How do you know me?" And he said to her, 25 years you are going here back and forth. I know you. I said, I never noticed him. I never noticed that it's the same guy who is sitting there 25 years. And then the idea came to make these transparent people. There are so many transparent people in our society, in Israel, so many, all over the world, but in Israel it's an extreme situation because out of many reasons. And we have so many security guards that sitting all over the place, earning almost nothing for their work, and we don't see them. We never say hello. We never see that it's the same people that we see for 25 years.
זו סיבה אחת, אבל סיבה השנייה, שהנסיבות היו כאלה שהעלייה הייתה יותר מדי גדולה בשביל ארץ קטנה, והיה צריך תעסוקה, ותעסוקה הייתה שמירה. אבל אני בחרתי את האנשים שחיים...
כן, אבל זה משהו אחר. כן. זו תשובה למשהו אחר. She's answering a different question now.
לא, זה בגלל זה בחרתי את הנושא.
The days that in 1990 it started in 1991, 1 million Russian Jews came to Israel. You know it probably. It was a big, big wave of immigration, and it was extremely hard for them to get along, to find themselves here. And Lina chose the people out of the research. We met plenty of people. She chose the people that the nesibot, how you say nesibot, that
Conditions.
it's not exactly conditions. It's how would you say nesibot? It's that the conditions of life didn't lead them to give up on important things for them. Like they were still fighting on having their profession in some way. Most of them are, all of them are in some kind of art. Even medicine is some kind of art. Okay, if you do it properly, if you do it from the heart, if you do it, if you're living for it. Okay. And Lina has lots of respect for people who do not give up for circumstances. That's the word. For circumstances of life, okay? Circumstances of life might change your life, but if you are strong enough, you can fight. You can give a fight to it.
כל הגיבורים האלה וכל הנושא זה על אנשים שלא מוותרים בגלל circumstances.
This film is all about people who do not give up to circumstances, to bad circumstances. Being an immigrant, Lina knows it from her personal life. Lina immigrated to Israel in 1976 when she was 42 already. She came with no language, with nothing, with a very, very, very problematic profession, cinematographic. Who made cinema in Israel in 1976? There were maybe, I don't know, dozens of people who worked in this profession. She says that if she would follow the circumstances of her life, she would sit in a booth like those people. But she didn't give up. Like our protagonists, they didn't really give up. Even though they are sitting in the booth, they're still trying to find ways to keep up with their real life, with their inner life.
This is beautiful. So there is a lot of Lina in this film. There is, of course, a lot of Russian-Israeli story in this film. And as you said, Daniela, there is also a much broader story in this film. You mentioned the importance of you call them transparent people, of whom there are so many, who don't have to be Russian Jews, Russian Israelis, but of course the film is about them. Now, do you know anything about the four characters? Have you maintained any contact with them? Do you know where they are today? Or once the movie is made, the relationship is over?
Yes.
Usually we keep contact with our protagonists, not all of them, but most of them. All of them in the same position, except for Pikarovsky, who somehow had so much luck, and his books are being published in the best newspaper in Israel, and is well valued. People likes him. People likes his story. I can tell that not long ago I met him once in a different position, in a different booth. It's not a booth anymore. He went to the booth is not working anymore. It's a regional one, and he went to work in a building, and lots of ceramics and mirrors and I don't know whatever. And he said that he can't write there. He's not able to write there. He lost his muse. But he needs pension. He needs his pension, and then he needs to earn money, because you can write wonderful books and even to be published, but it's not good enough to make enough money to live. So he is still there. He is still in the same position in many ways, but he didn't give up, even though he didn't give up.
The story of the third character, the only, and it's beautiful that we hear a woman's perspective, we also see the man's perspective, but the female character story is heart-wrenching, because she actually, I don't want to say she gives up. She just tries a different route. She goes back to Russia, and then she comes back from Russia.
Yeah.
What does that story mean to you? It's unlike the other three. There is more happening there. It's a different baggage.
זאת אומרת, זה שהאימיגרציה זה דבר נורא קשה.
You understand Hebrew?
Yes, but please translate because it's much more beautiful.
אני רוצה להגיד שזה אומר שאימיגרציה, הגירה, זה דבר נורא נורא טרגי, מפני שברוב המקרים, אם הבן אדם לא יכול למצוא מקום במקום חדש, ומנסה לחזור למקום הישן, זה לא הולך. אז הוא לא, כמו שאומרת את לילה, הגיבורה של הסרט, אנחנו לא זקוקים לא פה ולא שם, אף אחד לא צריך אותנו.
Just a minute. Lina says that to immigrate it's tragic unless you are a kid, okay? It's tragic because you never can find your real place in the new country that you immigrated to. And Lila, even though she went back to Russia and then she came back, she says nobody needs me. She's in a limbo. She's living in a limbo. Yeah. She's like accepted at the end. You know, we went on the last shooting day, we went to Lod, where she lived and worked, to take some shots, some visuals. We missed some visuals that we wanted to show traveling of streets in Lod and everything. So we went to the neighborhood where we filmed her. We didn't know she came back. We didn't know at all. And all of a sudden, we're going through the booth and she's there. And we were astonished.
It's a great surprise.
It was a great surprise to us. She didn't call us. She didn't say anything. She felt very bad about going there, about coming back. Her life didn't turn up as she planned it, okay? Her husband died during the film. It was quite a time for her. And for us, it was a shock, a real shock that she came back. And she came back to the same booth. And we felt that she accepted the circumstances, okay? She accepted it. She didn't have energy to fight anymore. And that was very sad for all of us. It was very sad for the crew to see her like in this position.
And she allowed you to tell this part of the story. She allowed...
Yeah, right? Yeah, היא הרשתה לנו להראות את הדבר הזה בסרט. Yeah, of course. We never do something that we're not...
No, of course. I didn't mean it that way. I meant it quite that on her part, as Lina mentioned, that she's the Gibora Haseret. She really is very much part of that heroism on her part to acknowledge this and to talk about this, to share this difficulty with the viewer. Now, you told us, Lina and Daniela, how you found the first character. But how did you find the others? How did you move to Aharon and...
We didn't tell you yet how did we find our...
how the idea came, rather, from that...
How the idea came. איך מצאנו את הגיבורים שלנו. First of all, the criteria was obvious from the first minute for Lina.
Meetings of 100 people.
We're making research usually the same way, but first phase is usually make criterions, okay? What are we looking for? And the first criteria was looking for people who didn't give up. That was the criteria. People who are still keeping their hope and looking for ways to keep on their initial job, their fire, their inner fire, okay?
חיפשנו את האנשים שהאישיות שלהם יותר חזקה
We looked for people that their personality is stronger than the circumstances of life, okay? And that was the criteria. And we went through hundreds of people of course, as usual. And we chose the people that give the full impact, full impression of the phenomena. And that's what I think, right, Lina? It's first of all, living their inner life properly, like not giving up. And second, people who were strong enough and giving the full image of the situation, of the, like it was, we didn't want to bring two writers,
right.
3 violin builder. We want to make it some kind of spectrum of professions, for example.
How was the film received in Israel? Did you show it abroad? In Israel, did you have comments, reactions from different segments of the movie watching community in general? What can you tell us about how the film was responded to?
איך הסרט התקבל בארץ?
קיבלנו פרס.
איזה פרס קיבלנו באמת? First of all, we won, לא בפורמצון, בחיפה, קיבלנו ציון לשבח.
לא, וגם, איך אומרים, פרס בפורום יוצרים. עריכה.
נכון, עריכה ו...
מוזיקה.
I don't remember anymore. Since then, we finished 1 more film, or 2 more films, and we are now working on a new film, so I lost my memory. We participated in the Haifa Film Festival, and we got, how do they call it? The mention prize?
Honorable mention.
Something mentioned, honorable prize. And then we won in a documentary forum in Israel. We won for the music and editing. That's for the prizes. And we took part in a film festival in Warsaw, in Lisbon, in where else? Few places I can't remember now. St. Petersburg. In St. Petersburg. My children, I think that's the most interesting, I think, for our audience. They said, since this movie, I'm always saying hello to the guard in the entrance.
Oh, that's beautiful, Daniela. That's really nice.
So I think, and this was, I heard it from few people, not only my children, that all of a sudden, good people, not bad people, not evil people, that it's easy not to notice those people. It's easy.
So now we know.
For us native born, it's very easy to avoid people who are strangers.
אני צריכה להודות שגם אני התחלתי לדבר אחרי סרט שלום לאנשים.
Lina says that she admits that even she started to talk with these people, these people after the film. She admits that before the film, she never noticed that she didn't communicate with those people.
And as we learned, it's also important to give a small tip, right? Just a shekel, because that might make an important contribution. So let me put the two of you now, if you will, on the screen or on the table. What did the movie do to you? Did you obviously, now we know about your children, how it influenced your children, and that's beautiful. We know now how the professional community related to the film. And now we know that you have also changed, because you are going to make sure to always greet the man or the woman in the budke. Did the movie change you in any other way? Perhaps not in behavior, but the way you think about immigrant life, the way you think about the trials and tribulations.
Lina always says, and I'll quote, films don't change life. She always says that. Films do not affect real life. I disagree with her. I really disagree with her. I think films do change lives. I can tell that our last film changed few people's life, really changed few people's lives. But Lina is keeping on saying it because she's used to say it.
Lina, can you tell us a little bit more about that? Why do you think that? And Daniela, why do you think otherwise? Lina, why do you think that films do not change people? And Daniela, why do you disagree? And please tell us about your last film.
שפילם בכל האמנות יכול לשנות לכמה אנשים התייחסות לחיים, או אני לא יודעת מה. אבל באופן עקרוני אנחנו יודעים שהאנושות עשתה הרבה אמנויות מאוד מאוד ביקורתיות כלפי מציאות, ומציאות נשארה כמו שהיא.
She has a point, okay? She has a point. She says that, I would make it short, but art for decades is dealing with criticism on the reality from many point of views. And still reality is quite bad most of the time, okay? Still people are making war and doing awful things to each other. So she says that it might change the attitude to life for few people, but it's not, what she means, it is not changing life, okay? It's not a change, a game changer. That's what you mean, right?
Yes.
It's not a game changer.
And you, Daniela?
I think, listen, Voices from the Booth left me really sad because of Lila and because of Zignat. Zignat is the musician, the accordion player. He had very high expectations from the film. He thought that the film will change his life, that it will come out and people will notice him and people will see how he plays nice and professional and everything. And all the time I was pumping him this information that it is not going to be. It is not going to be. Please take it in healthy proportions, okay? It's Channel 8. Channel 8 is not the biggest channel in Israel. It's not going to change your life. And he was really disappointed at the end, even though I was pumping this all the time, all the 2 years that we were shooting, I didn't stop saying it. Because I feel in the film also always responsibility for the people who are shooting. I feel I wouldn't like them to finish the film empty. Okay, it's very important to both of us to give them, to leave them with a good taste, not to leave them disappointed.
Hope.
To give them some hope, yeah, you know. And it didn't happen this time. It was really sad for me. That's how I feel about Voices from the Booth. Why do I think that films do change people? Because they do change reality, I would say, because our last film called In Secret, and it's dealing with Orthodox Jews in Israel, and a very special and narrow section in this Orthodox Jews that comes from all over the sects. Okay, it's that people who are not really Orthodox Jews, they are completely secular. They dress as if they are Orthodox. They keep everything. They keep Shabbat, everything from outside, but inside they are completely atheist. Most of them are atheists. Some of them are agnostics. All kinds of beliefs. And we filmed this film. Most of our protagonists there are interviewed with masks, with Venetian masks, and only 3 of them are in their real faces because they are coming out. Okay, while we are shooting, we are accompany them out of the process, and I think we changed those people's lives. I have no doubt. Those with all our protagonists with the mask are now without masks. They are all out.
Amazing.
They are all, and it's much broader impact on the Orthodox community in Israel. This film is on YouTube in Israel, only in Israel, and it has more than 1,000 views because it's a lot for Israel. It's
yes, of course,
a big amount of people. Only because it has a great impact on the Orthodox community. I hear it from all over the place. So I think movies can bring a change. Lina does not.
Thank you, Daniela, and thank you, Lina, for sharing this this debate, this professional but also personal debate between the two of you with us. There are a number of comments that are coming in our chat box. Let me just ask one more question from my angle, if you will, and then I'm going to read out some of the comments and questions that our viewers and our audience is asking us. The Russian community in Israel, the same aliyah that Lina you talked about after in the early 1990s, also brought a tremendous enrichment of culture and dynamism, Israeli society. Russian Israelis are also, if you look in the contemporary political developments in Israel, you see in the commanding heights of the state, Avigdor Lieberman, Yuri Edelstein, I mean, they are all over, and not just in political life. So the Russian community boasts tremendous successes, but also these tremendous difficulties and hardships that you're showing in the movie. Is there a Russian story you're trying to tell in Voices from the Booth? Or could you have chosen representatives from other national and ethnic communities who are also in the booth?
האם המטרה שלך בסרט הייתה לספר את הסיפור הרוסי? או שיכולת היית לבחור, למה דווקא Voices from the Booth? יכולת היית לבחור עכשיו קבוצת רופאים רוסית.
כן. אני בחרתי דווקא אנשים שהסרקמסטנסס שלהם היו מאוד מאוד נגד כל העיסוק שלהם במקצוע, ורק בגלל שהם היו אנשים מיוחדים, הם היו יכולים לחיות רופאים או מישהו אחר, אבל שהם היו שומרים, אבל ממשיכים לעבוד, זה מאוד מאוד קיסם אותי.
קיסם אותך. Lina is not, Lina is talking in a very funny Hebrew as well. Lina says that we chose people only that fought against the circumstances, okay? Even though they could have been like coming here building violin. Come on, who needs violins in Israel? And so many. Okay, it's not a profession that can hold somebody in Israel. There is one, there are two, but if you're a newcomer, who will, you know, it's not a profession. Who plays violin here?
תגיד להם שסופרים, יש פה יותר סופרים רוסים מאשר קוראים.
There are more Russian authors than Russian readers in Israel at this point of time, okay? So
we have more writers.
Yeah, writers, not authors, the readers. So she couldn't do this film on a different kind of people, like going to a department in the hospital, for example. It's not the subject. The subject, it's not the Russian. It's a story about people who didn't give up. Okay, they could have been Ethiopians. They could have been somebody else. Okay, but they needed to be people who didn't give up.
Yes, perfectly, and it's actually answering some of the questions that have been put into the chat box. There is a very interesting question, which let me just read it out, and let me just add maybe my own follow-up question or thought to it. The question goes as such: why would a physician or a surgeon not be, as we saw it in the case of Lina, would not be able to find employment in a high-tech laboratory? So
you froze for us for a while.
Are we back? I think we're. Can you hear me now, Daniela?
Now I can hear you, yeah.
Okay. So the question that we have in the chat is asking why a surgeon or a physician would not be able to find employment in a high-tech laboratory. So what I would like to add to this is...
I can't hear you, you have disconnected.
How is it now? Can you hear me now, Daniela?
Do you hear me? Yeah, do you hear me?
Yeah, perfectly well. We are connected very well, yeah.
Okay, let's try again.
Yeah. So why would a physician or a surgeon not find employment in a high-tech laboratory? We don't know that. Like in the movie, we don't actually hear the details of how they tried to find jobs, positions in their miktsua, in their profession. What's your reaction to this question?
Israel in 1991 had around 6 million people. Okay, the total population was 6 million people, and all of a sudden 1 million people came. It's a lot. We didn't have enough place, I would say, for medicine, for all those professions, and many of them came with not usable professions in Israel. Some of them, for example, Pikarovsky was an art criticism in Russia, in St. Petersburg. He couldn't do nothing like this here. He didn't have the language. He didn't know the local art at all. He didn't have nothing to say about it. He didn't know the culture, the origins of the culture. It's I don't know many people like Lina. I would say, I would permit myself to talk in front of her, okay? It's a matter of personality. You have to be really optimistic, a real fighter, to immigrate from one place to another and to adapt and to understand deeply the new culture you are entering. It's very, very complicated. Above all, when you are 40 and above, it's really, really complicated. You have status in the original place, you have profession, you have family, you have money, you have what?
יש הרבה מקצועות
שהם unneeded here. Many professions in Russia, you don't have them here. You don't need them here. So many actors and directors and whatever, you name it, came here and there is nothing to do with them, okay? Yeah. So some of them who are really, really strong made Gesher theater, okay?
That's right.
But most of them were left without. Some of them, like Lina, hold on to the profession and stick to it with all her strength and didn't give up. But it was really, really luck and personality that made it possible for her and for her husband.
אנשים שיושבים בבודקה בסרט שלנו מוכיחים שאפילו בסיטואציה כזאת, עכשיו כבר בעוד 30 שנה, די הרבה אנשים מצאו את עצמם, עשו הסבה מקצועית, וזה יותר מפתיע מאשר
Lina says that now, after 30 years or so, no more than 30 years, it's very surprising for Lina to see that most of them found themselves after all. Most of them found their places more or less, maybe not in the original profession, but they made changes and they adapted themselves. We are still, for example, we have a girl, she's a young woman, and she's originally, Masha, what's her profession? She's a translator from? English to Russian. What can she do with it here, okay? So she's working as she's nurturing old people for now, because she's 3 years in Israel and she has to make her living. Lots of people are like this. It's you know it in Canada probably. In Canada, new immigrant that is arriving is jumping into being head of the Azrieli Institute? No, I assume not.
It takes time, of course. And it's beautiful. We actually see many, many comments coming in the chat making precisely these comparisons with North America, America. You see that one of the last comments from Beth actually makes a comparison with your grandparents' generation and how they struggled and tried to make it in America. Let me share, and this is probably going to be the last comment or the last question/comment that we will have time to discuss, which is about Pekarovsky. And Rosa Richter tells us that she paid attention to this character, to Pekarovsky. He dressed always in a suit when he would go to work, to the budke, to the parking lot, and to the booth, making it seem as though he was going to a very important position and event. So it seems that he felt a lot of pride for himself. It is a brilliant observation. Thank you, Rosa, for sharing that. Do you think, Lina and Daniela, that perhaps that kind of self-respect and pride for who you are, for what spark divine or human you have in you, respect for that and love for that may be a key to surviving and defeating the odds and the difficult circumstances? Or how do you respond? How do you relate to the image of this Russian art curator always dressed to the teeth when he would come to work in the parking lot?
תמיד הולך עם חליפה, הוא מתייחס בכבוד עצמי גדול מאוד. האם זה לדעתך אלמנט שמשפיע על ההצלחה, על היכולת להתמודד עם הקשיים?
Obviously, yes, I would say. Obviously, yes. It's part of being, of being what you are, of being not giving up. It's part of it. If you having this shelf in the booth with all these philosophy books there, reading it while you are sitting in the hottest place in Tel Aviv. It's the hottest point in Tel Aviv, I would say, because it has no trees, nothing, only roads and everything. And still reading there Dostoevsky or whatever, what did he read there? Hermann Hesse and everything else.
He quoted
you have to be somebody in order to do it. You have to be somebody. Not everybody can be. Most of the people in this situation would not be. And he chose to be, and that's what's special about our people.
And that's what's so special about this film. It's really a beautiful testimony to the human spirit. It's a beautiful testimony to Jewish Israeli struggles, but also overcoming those struggles and winning in those struggles. And I cannot thank you enough, Lina and Daniela, for making this film, for allowing us to bring it to our community, to our university, to our students, and for sharing your very own personal reflections about the film, but also what's behind the film, your stories. And that's what makes this conversation so special and this exchange so special. So thank you. And I would also like to thank members of the audience for taking time away, for joining us. I know that middle of the day in Montreal is difficult, but this is the best we can do to bring our Israeli friends and colleagues connect with us in virtual space. And of course, my huge thanks to Lisa Komlos, who is our marketing and social media coordinator at the Azrieli Institute, who is responsible for getting the word out and for organizing in the background, in her booth, if you will, in Montreal, making it all happen. It's a different booth. It's a different booth.
Each one in his own booth, yeah.
So thank you so much. Friends, please join us again, same place, same time next week, when we conclude our program looking at the Israeli mosaic through documentaries. Next week's topic will be Christianity, when we look at the politics and the confrontations in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. and the story of the lone Israeli policeman who is trying to keep the peace. Our guest will be the director of the film, Anat Tal, and Professor Lorenzo Di Tommaso from Concordia University. Lina and Daniela, once again, thank you so much for the film.
Thank you very much
for joining us.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye.